I'm going to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable at first. Making more money doesn't automatically make your life better. In fact, if you're not careful, it can make your problems bigger. Not because money is bad, but because it amplifies whatever is already there. If your habits are messy, money makes them more expensive. If your decisions are unclear, money gives you more ways to make the wrong ones. And this is the part most people don't expect. They think income is the solution, but income is just an amplifier. So instead of assuming that money will fix everything, it's more useful to ask a different question. What actually needs to change when money starts coming in? And just as important, what should stay exactly the same? Because both matter a lot. Let's start with something simple. Imagine someone who's been working really hard for years. They finally get a higher paying job, or their business starts doing well. For the first time, there's extra money, and for a moment, it feels like relief. But then something subtle happens. Their lifestyle starts expanding almost immediately. Better apartment, more subscriptions, more eating out, more I deserve this purchases. And none of this feels wrong. It actually feels like progress. But within a few months, they're right back to feeling the same financial pressure, just at a higher level. This happens more often than people realize, because the problem was never just income. It was how the system around that income was built. So, if money is starting to come in, the first thing that actually needs to change is how you treat your time. Not in a dramatic way, but in a very intentional one, because time is the one thing money doesn't replace. You can earn more later, you can recover from a bad investment, but you can't get your time back. And this becomes very real once your income increases, because suddenly you have choices. Let's take a simple example. Two people both start earning more. One of them fills their schedule even more work, more commitments, more things they have to do. The other person starts doing something different. They begin protecting small blocks of time. Time to think, time to plan, time to just step back and not react to everything. And over time, their lives start looking very different. Not because one earned more, but because one used time more intentionally. The second thing that needs to shift is your environment. And this is not about luxury, it's about clarity. Your environment affects your behavior more than you think. If everything around you feels chaotic, your decisions start becoming reactive. But when your space is simple, organized, intentional, your thinking follows. You don't need a perfect setup, but you do need an environment that supports the version of you you're trying to become. Even small things matter here. A clean desk, a quiet corner, a place where you can think clearly. Because when money increases, complexity increases too. And your environment should reduce that, not add to it. Now, the third shift is something most people ignore: your conversations. Because as your income changes, the way you think needs to evolve too. And thinking doesn't happen in isolation. It's shaped by what you hear regularly. Let's say someone starts doing well financially, but every conversation around them is still about complaints, comparison, or short term thinking. Over time, they get pulled back into that pattern. Not intentionally, just gradually. Now, compare that to someone who starts having slightly different conversations, talking about ideas, long term plans, decisions, trade offs. Nothing dramatic, just a different level of thinking. That alone changes direction. The next shift is your health. And this one sounds obvious, but it's usually ignored until it becomes urgent. Because when people get busy making money, they start trading their energy for output: less sleep, more stress, quick decisions, and it works for a while, until it doesn't. The reality is simple. Your body is the system that runs everything else. If that system breaks down, nothing else really matters. And the strange part is, when you have more money, you actually have more ability to take care of this. Better food, better routines, more flexibility, but only if you choose to use it that way. Now, here's where things get interesting. Because once those shifts start happening, there's something else that needs to change: your definition of what money is for. At the beginning, money often feels like validation. It feels like progress, like proof that you're doing well. So naturally, spending becomes tied to that feeling. You upgrade things, you improve your lifestyle, you signal that you've moved forward. But over time, that starts to feel less important, and something else replaces it. You start valuing experiences more than appearances. Not in a cliche way, in a very practical way. time with people you care about, doing things that actually feel meaningful, not just things that look impressive. And then there's one more shift that matters a lot: contribution. Because once your own needs are stable, you start thinking beyond yourself. Not because you have to, but because it naturally comes up. You start asking different questions. Who can I help? What can I improve? How do I make this matter beyond just me? And this doesn't have to be something big. It can be small, consistent, real. Because contribution isn't about scale, it's about intention. Now, everything we just talked about, those are things that need to change. But there's another side to this: things that should not change, no matter how much money you make. The first is your values, because money doesn't replace them, it reveals them. If your decisions were unclear before, money doesn't fix that. It just gives you more room to act on them. So staying aligned with what actually matters to you becomes even more important. The second is your people, the ones who were there before anything changed, because it's very easy to drift away from that. Not intentionally, just gradually. But those relationships, they ground you. They remind you who you are outside of money. The third is your curiosity, because the moment you think you've figured everything out, you stop growing. And growth is what got you here in the first place. So staying open, staying willing to learn, that never changes. The fourth is gratitude. And this one is easy to lose, because as things improve, you start normalizing what used to feel special. But the small things don't lose value. We just stop noticing them. And bringing that awareness back keeps everything balanced. And finally, your strategy, because this is where people often go wrong. They start making more money and suddenly feel like they need to do something more complex, more advanced, more next level. But most of the time, what worked before still works. Consistency, simplicity, patience. Those don't stop being effective. People just get bored of them. So if we step back and look at all of this together, making money doesn't solve your problems. It changes the scale at which they show up, which means the real shift is not external, it's internal. It's how you think, how you decide, how you structure your life. Because in the end, wealth is not just about having more. It's about needing less from the wrong things and being more intentional about the right ones. So if your income is starting to grow, don't rush to upgrade everything. Pause for a second and ask yourself, what actually needs to change here? And just as important, what should stay exactly the same? Because if you get that right, money doesn't just make your life bigger, it makes it better. I'm Robert, and if this helped you think about money a little differently, stay with me. We'll keep breaking this down simply. I'll see you in the next one.